My name is Emily, and this is the story of how I broke free from a difficult family past. I was the oldest daughter, a role that meant I was expected to care for my younger siblings from a very young age. I changed my first diaper at 6 years old. My mother viewed pregnancy like a common cold, and my father's earnings often went to new tools or nights out. Both parents came from large families where this was considered normal. By the age of 8, I was responsible for 3 siblings. My parents would go on dates, leaving me to manage bottles and crying babies. Each new pregnancy, my mother would tell me I would soon marry and pass the burden to someone else, looking at me as if I were hired help. When I was 14, my mother formally announced another pregnancy. This time, she gave me a notebook with a household schedule, listing me as the primary caregiver from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. She said I was old enough for night feedings, and my father agreed, stating they had canceled my after-school activities because family came first. The hardest part was when they told me I needed a work permit to buy diapers because they could not afford them, calling it real-world experience. They said this was what love looked like in our culture, and that I was better with the children than they were. My day began at 5:30 a.m., preparing breakfast for 4 children while my parents slept. I once fell asleep during a parent-teacher meeting, and my parents thought I was partying. The youngest child even started calling me Mama, which led to strange looks from others. The turning point came when I earned a full academic scholarship to my chosen college. The acceptance letter arrived, and for the first time, I felt like a normal girl named Emily, not an underage mother. As I cried tears of happiness, my mother announced she was pregnant again with twins. My father became even more uncaring than usual. I had to care for my mother during her pregnancy symptoms while still looking after the children. The college counselor contacted me about final papers, and I missed the deadline by 10 minutes because an infant was sick. My scholarship was taken away due to a lack of commitment. My parents said college would have been selfish anyway. I then secretly began to plan my escape. I applied to and was accepted by a community college. I took a part-time job at a grocery store and hid my money in a tampon box. My 16-year-old sister, Lily, found out but promised to keep my secret. Everything was going as planned until my parents found my admission letter in my chemistry textbook. My mother cried, recalling their supposed sacrifices, and my father threatened to kick me out if I left the family. The next day, I came home from work to find social workers in the house. My parents had told them I was an irresponsible caregiver. The social worker, Ms. Davis, understood the situation but gave me a difficult choice. Either I remain the primary caregiver or my siblings would go into foster care. My parents smirked, thinking they had won. However, I had a secret weapon. Lily had been secretly recording our parents on her phone for several weeks. Lily passed her phone to me. I told Ms. Davis that the recording showed everything. My mother's face went pale, and my father tried to grab the phone, but Ms. Davis stopped him. I played the first recording. My mother's voice was clear, stating that I needed to understand my place as the oldest girl, and that this was my job until I married and passed it on. My father's voice followed, saying they would make sure I did not go to college instead of raising the children. The room fell silent. My mother then started crying, claiming it was taken out of context and edited with an app. My father quickly added that I had been unstable and made it up for attention. Ms. Davis looked between us, her expression unclear. She stated these were serious claims and needed to verify the recording's authenticity. My mother suddenly suggested calling her nephew, Kevin, who worked in IT and could prove they were fake. Within an hour, Kevin arrived. He told Ms. Davis that audio manipulation was easy and without original files, it was impossible to prove the recordings were real. Lily's face fell, and my heart sank. I knew the family would protect each other. Ms. Davis noted that she would investigate further, and for now, the children would remain under the current arrangement. After Ms. Davis left, my parents' true intentions were clear. My mother grabbed my arm, threatening a family meeting with Grandma Eleanor to discuss me trying to destroy the family. The next morning, our house was full of relatives. Grandma Eleanor, the family matriarch who raised 12 children and believed adversity built character, sat like a queen. She immediately scolded me for recording my parents, stating that in her day, disrespectful children were punished. My aunts agreed. My uncle David, a lawyer, was also present, taking notes. My mother had already contacted him for representation if things got worse. My mother then claimed I had always been difficult and produced a folder of fake therapy notes from a friend, stating I had attachment issues, defiance, and was a pathological liar. I protested they were fake, but Grandma Eleanor cut me off, saying children who do not fulfill family duties are sick. She insisted that every woman in the family had done her duty, and I was not special. Over the next few days, the family divided. Some cousins privately expressed understanding, but most sided with my parents, believing family traditions were sacred. My parents filed court documents, claiming I was mentally unwell and had turned the younger children against them. They wanted emergency custody transferred to them and me banned from caregiving. I recognized the irony. That night, my father told me I would regret it, claiming they had given me everything, a roof, food, and purpose. The next morning, the locks were changed, and my key did not work. My clothes were in trash bags in the yard, and a restraining order was taped to the front door. They claimed I had threatened them at the family gathering. Lily watched from her bedroom window, crying, and said she was recording. But I wonder what good it would do with the whole family against us. That night, I slept in my car behind the grocery store where I worked. My manager found me the next morning, and I begged him not to say anything, as I needed the job more than ever. However, word spread quickly in our small community. By the end of the week, my father's construction friends visited the store, buying single items and making remarks about ungrateful children. The next day, my manager told me he had received complaints about me being distracted and making mistakes, suggesting I take time off. I pleaded, explaining I had nowhere else to go, but we both knew it would not be temporary. In our small town, crossing my father had serious consequences. I stayed in my car for 2 more nights until a bed became available at a women's shelter. The intake worker reacted strongly to my restraining order, filed by my own parents. The shelter was noisy but better than my car, offering a bed, a locker, and access to showers. I knew I could figure out the rest later. The family court hearing was scheduled for the following week. My parents had Uncle David represent them for free. I had no one, as legal aid said I did not qualify because I was not seeking custody. The morning before the hearing, I put on my best clothes, wrinkled from being in my car. Lily texted me that our parents had been coaching the younger children all week. In the courtroom, my parents appeared as model citizens. My mother wore conservative clothes, and my father wore a new suit. They brought character witnesses from their jobs and Mrs. White, the counselor with fake therapy notes. Uncle David stated that his clients were hardworking parents dealing with a troubled teenager who struggled with authority. He claimed my recordings were fabricated, and their IT expert would testify. Kevin took the stand, repeating his claims about audio manipulation and showing examples of programs that could create false interactions. He was smooth, professional, and convincing. Then my parents testified, painting a picture of a rebellious girl who hated her younger siblings, made up stories for attention, and threatened to destroy the family if she did not get her way. My mother cried, saying they loved all their children equally, but I had always been difficult. When it was my turn to speak, I felt overwhelmed. My words sounded weak compared to their rehearsed statements. I tried to explain the years of caregiving, lost opportunities, and parentification, but without proof, it was just my word against theirs. The judge asked about the recordings. I explained that Lily had them and had been documenting everything. The judge was doubtful, asking about my 16-year-old sister, the one my parents claimed I was manipulating. Lily was asked to testify. She looked smaller than usual, her hands shaking. Our parents stared at her, and Uncle David smiled like a shark. He asked if I had asked her to record our parents. Lily looked at me, then at our parents. She said she did it on her own, but that I knew about it and encouraged it. Her voice shook, saying she just wanted to help. Uncle David then suggested that people we love can lead us astray and asked if I had been telling her stories to make her see things differently. I watched Lily crumble under his questioning. Our parents had threatened and made her doubt herself. By the time Uncle David finished, it seemed like I had orchestrated a plan to turn my siblings against their loving parents. The judge appeared troubled, but seemed to believe it. I felt trapped. Then Miss Davis stood up. She stated she had additional findings from her investigation. She presented a large manila folder. My parents shifted uncomfortably, and Uncle David's confident smile faded. Ms. Davis calmly but forcefully explained that she had discovered concerning financial discrepancies. My mother had been collecting government assistance for childcare services for the past 8 years. My mother's face went pale, and my father gripped the table. The applications stated my mother needed childcare assistance due to her dental office work schedule. However, Ms. Davis's investigation revealed that I had been the primary caregiver during all hours covered by this assistance. Uncle David quickly stood, claiming it was a misunderstanding and clerical errors. Ms. Davis stated it was clerical errors totaling over $20,000 in fraudulent claims. She provided photocopies of the applications, signed by my mother, claiming to pay for professional childcare. The judge leaned forward, suddenly interested, and asked if Ms. Davis was suggesting welfare fraud. Ms. Davis confirmed this. Furthermore, my father had been claiming me as a dependent on his taxes while requiring me to work to support the household, collecting child tax credits for an unpaid nanny. My father jumped up, claiming it was ridiculous and they had supported me my entire life. The judge told him to sit down. Ms. Davis provided more paperwork, including bank records showing government assistance deposits, tax returns with dependent claims, and security footage of my mother signing the applications. My mother began to sob genuinely. She claimed they were just trying to make ends meet because construction work was seasonal and they needed help. The lawyer questioned why they forced their daughter to provide free childcare while collecting money for that service. Uncle David tried to recover, arguing that financial irregularities did not negate my concerning behavior and that the recordings were still suspicious. Ms. Davis then revealed that she had the recordings analyzed by an independent audio forensics expert, not a family member. She looked sharply at Kevin, who was now staring at the floor. The expert confirmed the recordings were authentic, with no signs of manipulation. The judge's expression darkened. He asked Uncle David if he knew his expert witness was a family member. Uncle David struggled to answer, admitting he knew Kevin was related, but did not think it was relevant to disclose. The courtroom fell silent, and I could hear my heart racing. Lily quietly cried. The judge asked Ms. Davis what else her investigation uncovered. She revealed a pattern of parentification dating back to when I was 6. Multiple school witnesses confirmed I often attended parent-teacher conferences, signed permission slips with my parents' consent, and handled medical appointments for younger children. She also found that my college scholarship was withdrawn due to missed deadlines while I was caring for a sick infant, the same infant my parents claimed they were paying professional childcare to watch. The judge reviewed the documents, his frown deepening. He directly asked my parents if they had been collecting government assistance for childcare while forcing their eldest daughter to provide that care for free. My mother looked at my father, who looked at Uncle David, who appeared defeated. My mother faintly responded that they were just doing what their parents did, calling it tradition. The judge stated that tradition does not override the law or excuse welfare fraud. He then turned to me. With trembling legs, I said I just wanted to go to college and had worked hard for that scholarship. I loved my siblings but wanted a chance at my own life. When I tried to leave, they called social services, accused me of neglect, changed the locks, and got a restraining order based on lies. I had been sleeping in my car and then at a shelter because my own parents made me homeless for wanting an education. My father tried to interrupt, saying I was being dramatic, but the judge stopped him. Ms. Davis then made her recommendations. Given the financial fraud and systematic parentification, she proposed a comprehensive inquiry by the Department of Social Services. She also suggested vacating my restraining order immediately, as it was obtained under false pretenses. The judge agreed, adding that he had requested a forensic accounting assessment of the family's finances. He warned my parents that benefit fraud was a criminal act that could lead to prosecution. My parents went pale, and Uncle David started gathering his papers, distancing himself. Furthermore, the judge ordered temporary custody of the minor children to remain with their parents under strict social services supervision. I would not be required to offer any childcare. Any disobedience would result in immediate removal of the children. My mother cried, asking who would watch them if they could not afford it. The judge coldly remarked that they should have thought of that before committing fraud with childcare money. The court adjourned, and my parents were told not to leave the state, awaiting notification of criminal investigation proceedings. The gavel fell, and my parents sat stunned, realizing the seriousness of their situation. They tried to trap me, but trapped themselves instead. Outside the courthouse, Ms. Davis approached me. She explained that the forensic accountant would likely uncover more than just the childcare fraud, mentioning tax fraud if my father claimed me as a dependent while I was working. I numbly nodded, asking what happened next. She advised me to focus on rebuilding my life. The restraining order would be lifted within 24 hours, and I could return home with a police escort if I wished to get my belongings. I quickly responded that I did not want to go back there to live, just to get my things. She understood and asked where I would stay. I mentioned the shelter had space for another week, shrugging, unsure what to do without my job. Ms. Davis gave me a business card for a transitional housing program for young adults fleeing family abuse, saying they could help with housing and job placement. I took the card with shaky hands and thanked her. She told me to thank my sister, Lily, explaining that Lily had more than just recordings. Lily had kept a diary for 2 years, noting everything, which prompted Ms. Davis to investigate the finances further. My heart filled with gratitude for Lily's bravery. As I left the courthouse, my phone buzzed with angry texts from family members who had attended the hearing, calling me a traitor, while others were shocked by the fraud. Grandma Eleanor sent a particularly nasty message. I deleted them without reading much more, as their opinions no longer mattered. After the restraining order was lifted, I returned to the house with a police escort to get my possessions. My parents were not there, but Lily was. She ran into my arms, apologizing for what she had said, explaining they had threatened to send the little ones away if she did not cooperate. I comforted her, telling her she was brave, and mentioned Ms. Davis told me about her diary. Lily admitted she started it when I got my scholarship, knowing they would try to stop me and wanting proof of what they put me through. We quickly packed my belongings, finding my community college acceptance letter and hidden money. As we put boxes into the police car, Lily asked what would happen to them. I admitted I did not know but promised to keep her and the kids safe. She nodded bravely, hoping our parents would finally have to care for their own children. The idea seemed almost silly, as they had never had to do it before, but with social services and criminal charges, they would have no choice. The following week, I moved into the transitional housing program, sharing a small apartment with 2 other young women who had fled family problems. It was clean, safe, and most importantly, mine. The program helped me find a new job at a different grocery store across town, away from my father's connections. The manager there understood my situation and was flexible with scheduling around my community college courses. I chose to continue my education. The acceptance was still valid, and with financial aid and my new job, I could make it work. It was not the university scholarship I had hoped for, but it was a step forward. 2 weeks after the hearing, my parents were formally charged with benefit fraud and tax evasion. The forensic accountant found over $30,000 in fraudulent claims. Uncle David refused to represent them, citing a conflict of interest, and they had to use a public defender. I noted the irony, as they had said I did not qualify for legal assistance, but now they needed it. My father's construction boss reduced his hours, and my mother was suspended from her dental practice. Lily kept me informed through texts. Our parents were in a panic. They were ordered to repay all fraudulent claims plus penalties, and the house might be sold. For the first time, they had to parent. There was no eldest daughter to delegate tasks to, and no government money for someone else's labor. Lily reported the house was messy, the younger kids were confused about my absence, and our parents were exhausted. Lily texted one evening that my mother actually changed a diaper, acting like it was the end of the world. I should have felt satisfaction, but instead, I felt sorry. Sorry for my confused and terrified siblings, sad it came to this, and even sad for my parents, who were so caught up in their own upbringing that they could not see their wrongdoing. Grandma Eleanor called an emergency family meeting, to which I was not invited. Lily said it was a disaster. Half the family believed my parents were victims, while the other half quietly admitted they had noticed warning signs, but chose not to intervene. During a phone call, Lily told me that our cousin, Sarah, said she went through the same thing, forced to raise 5 younger siblings. Then, Aunt Margaret said it happened to her, and everyone began arguing whether it was tradition or abuse. The family was breaking along generational lines, with the elders insisting it was tradition and the younger generation questioning why the eldest daughters always made the ultimate sacrifice. 3 months into the criminal process, my parents did something desperate. They disappeared. I was in my evening statistics class when Ms. Davis called. She informed me my parents missed their court appearance and had taken the younger children out of school, believing they were trying to leave the state. My blood ran cold, and I asked about Lily. Ms. Davis said Lily had alerted them and was safe at school. She added that my parents packed the van and told the kids they were going on a surprise vacation. I collapsed onto a bench, realizing they were going to flee with the children rather than face the consequences. I asked what I could do, and Ms. Davis told me to stay put, as they had notified state police and issued an Amber Alert. Lily had overheard them discussing staying with family in Texas. I knew my father had cousins there, likely unaware of the allegations, where they could disappear into another large family where eldest girls raising siblings was normal. I returned to class but could not concentrate. My professor, sensing my distress, told me I could leave. I packed my things and drove back to my apartment, trembling. The next few hours were the longest of my life. I stayed by my phone, waiting. My roommates brought me tea and shared their own family stories, which helped me feel less alone. Finally, after midnight, Ms. Davis called. They had found them. State police apprehended them at a gas station near the Texas border, and everyone was safe. I sobbed with relief. Ms. Davis explained my parents were jailed for custodial interference and breaking bond conditions. The children were placed in emergency foster care until a suitable placement could be found. I asked about Lily, who would turn 18 in 2 months. Ms. Davis said they were considering emergency emancipation for her independence. Then she asked if I would consider temporary guardianship of my siblings. This was the question I both dreaded and anticipated. I hesitated, unsure if I could, barely able to care for myself. Ms. Davis understood, telling me I did not have to decide that night, but to consider it. Foster care was not ideal, and I was the only family member who truly cared for their well-being. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet living room, thinking. I had fought so hard to avoid the role of surrogate mother, and the thought of willingly taking it on again made me feel ill. But the thought of my siblings separated in foster homes felt even worse. I called Lily, who answered immediately, sounding tired. She was at a police station and said they were being kind, giving her hot chocolate. She confirmed Ms. Davis mentioned early emancipation and asked what I thought she should do. Lily was silent for a long time. She believed I should do whatever kept me safe and healthy, as I had sacrificed enough. But then she said, maybe we could do things differently together. Not like before, where I did everything, but as real sisters helping each other. She suggested she could get a part-time job, we could seek legal aid, and ensure the children received therapy to deal with everything. We could break the cycle for real. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. It would mean leaving the dorms, moving to a larger place, and putting some goals on hold again. Lily gently suggested I might just be dreaming differently. College during the day, homework help at night, soccer practices, and PTA meetings, normal family things. But in this new version, everyone would help, and the kids would see what a real family was like. She painted a picture of a family where responsibility was shared, love did not demand sacrifice, and we could heal together. I asked for a day to think about it. Lily said she was proud of me for standing up to them and breaking free, which took more courage than any of them had. The next morning, I met with Ms. Davis and a family court representative who explained temporary guardianship. The children would receive counseling. Lily would be emancipated and could be a co-guardian, and social services would assist us. The advocate added that my parents would likely face 2 to 3 years in prison, and the children needed stability during that time. Foster care could help, but family placement was always better if the child was healthy. I thought of my siblings, the 8-year-old who stopped talking to me, the confused twins, and the newborn who called me Mama. I asked about Grandma Eleanor, wondering if she would try for custody. Ms. Davis shook her head, saying Grandma Eleanor was deemed unfit due to her age and for encouraging the parentification. Several family members had come forward with their own stories since my case became public, and Grandma Eleanor was now under investigation. The dominoes were falling, revealing a secret that had been kept for generations. I carefully explained that if I said yes, I needed guarantees. The kids needed therapy. Lily and I needed family counseling to learn how to do this correctly. We needed financial assistance for housing and real childcare, not me skipping school. They also needed help navigating college with this responsibility. The advocate assured me all of that could be arranged. They wanted this to succeed and to end the pattern, not continue it. I requested one more day to decide. That evening, I discussed it with my roommates. They had both come from abusive homes and understood the seriousness of the situation. One of them asked if I could live with either decision. Could I take on the responsibility without losing myself, or how would I deal with the guilt if I did not? It was a valid question. I had been forced into parenting for so long that I was unsure if I could choose it freely, but perhaps that was the point this time. It would be a choice. That night, I made a list of pros and cons. Deferred dreams versus scattered siblings, the life I had planned versus the family I could create. By morning, I had an answer. I called Ms. Davis. I would do it, but only with Lily as co-guardian and with the assistance we discussed. Ms. Davis said she would start the paperwork and expressed pride in me for taking on the challenge, setting boundaries and seeking help, calling it true cycle breaking. The next few weeks were filled with court hearings, apartment hunting with a social worker, meetings with teachers and counselors, treatment schedules, and trauma-informed parenting training. My parents' criminal trial was scheduled for the next month, and they were being held without bail after their escape attempt. I had not spoken with them since the initial hearing and did not intend to. Some bridges were meant to be burned. The day I was granted guardianship was strange. The judge made it clear it was temporary, pending my parents' trial and sentencing, but for now, I was legally responsible for my siblings, with support, resources, and my own choice. Lily and I moved into a 4-bedroom apartment supported by the Family Assistance Program, located in a better school district and convenient for both my community college and Lily's high school. We spent a weekend painting bedrooms and arranging furniture to make it feel like home. On a Tuesday afternoon, the children arrived. They looked shocked, clutching garbage bags of hastily packed belongings. The 8-year-old refused to look at me. The twins huddled behind the social worker, and little Owen, now 3, instinctively reached for me, then pulled back, confused. I knelt to his level, telling him it was scary and confusing, but Lily and I would care for them for a while, and this was their new home. One of the twins asked why they could not go home. Lily gently replied that our parents made bad choices and had to face consequences, but we would be fine, all of us together. It was not easy. The first week was full of tantrums, tears, and questions I could not answer. The 8-year-old finally broke down and admitted his parents told him I was trying to steal them away. It took patient explanation from his therapist to help him understand. We eventually settled into a routine. Lily and I split the morning tasks. I handled breakfast while she dressed the kids, and we hired a real babysitter for the hours between school and when one of us could be home. The kids did homework at the kitchen table while I cooked dinner, and Lily helped with baths and bedtime while I studied. It was not the college experience I had hoped for, without dorm parties or late-night library study sessions, but it was real. It was mine and ours. Despite the chaos, my grades remained excellent due to the understanding of my community college teachers who had faced similar situations and gave extensions when family court dates conflicted with exams. 3 months into our new arrangement, something beautiful happened. As I prepared dinner, the toddler tugged my shirt, calling me Emily, not Mama, and asked if he could help. I gave him a wooden spoon, guiding his hand. "Good job, buddy," I said. He matter-of-factly said, "I love you, Emily," before going to play. Lily caught my eye from across the kitchen, where she was helping with math homework, and we both had tears in our eyes. This was what love was supposed to look like. Choice, care, and building something greater without obligation, tradition, or shame. My parents' trial began the following week. Lily and I agreed to leave the kids at home so they would not see our parents in orange jumpsuits and shackles. However, we watched the television coverage that night after they were asleep. Both parents pleaded guilty to reduced charges for shorter sentences, 2 years for fraud and 3 years probation afterward. They would have to pay restitution and attend parenting sessions if they wanted to regain custody after release. Lily asked if I thought they would try to get custody back. I did not know. Perhaps prison would change them, or perhaps they would realize what they lost. Or maybe they would get frustrated and try to go back to the old ways. Lily confidently stated we would be ready anyway. The children were in therapy, we were documenting everything, and we were doing this correctly. She was right. We had 2 years to create a stable, healthy home, help the children heal, and show that the cycle could be broken. I thought about the scholarship I lost, the dorm room I would never sleep in, and the traditional college experience that had slipped away. But as I sat in our living room, listening to Lily quiz herself for a history test while I worked on calculus problems, I realized I had not lost my dreams. They had simply changed shape. I was still going to graduate and transfer to a 4-year university. It would take longer, be more difficult, and require more juggling, but I would also have something else, a family I chose to build, siblings who knew they were loved unconditionally, and a sister who stood beside me as an equal partner. The cycle sustained by our grandmother and followed by our mother ended with us. Lily and I would make errors, of course, but we would never teach the kids that sacrifice was love. We would never force them to choose between their aspirations and their family. Instead, we would show them that both were achievable with help, boundaries, and the courage to do things differently. As I closed my textbook that night, I felt something I had not felt in years, hope. Not just for my own future, but for all of ours. We were writing a new story, 1 page at a time. The sentencing hearing came faster than expected. Lily and I sat in the back row, watching our parents appear before the judge in their orange jumpsuits. They looked smaller, weakened by months of legal proceedings and the weight of their decisions. The prosecutor systematically laid out the case, $32,000 in false welfare claims, 8 years of tax fraud, child endangerment through parentification, custodial interference, and flight to evade prosecution, each with its own penalty. My mother's public defender argued for compassion due to their difficult upbringing and financial struggles. But the judge was firm. She had reviewed all the evidence, including Lily's diary and the tapes Kevin had tried to discredit. The judge, her voice stern, told my parents that they had systematically exploited their eldest daughter for nearly a decade. They took government money meant for her care while forcing her to provide it herself. They destroyed her educational opportunities. When she sought independence, they used the legal system to punish her. My father clenched his jaw while my mother looked at the floor. The judge sentenced them to 24 months in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. They would pay full restitution of $32,000 plus penalties. After release, they had to complete a court-approved parenting program before being considered for custody restoration. The gavel came down. My parents were led away without looking at us. I felt Lily's hand slide into mine, gripping tightly. Ms. Davis met us outside, holding documents. The permanent guardianship hearing was next month, and given my parents' sentences and the stability we had provided, she expected things to go well. That afternoon, when I picked up the kids from school, David, the 8-year-old, had started talking to me again after months of therapy. The twins, Leia and Zoe, ran to the car, chattering about their art projects, and little Owen, now 3, insisted on showing me the dinosaur sticker his teacher had given him. David asked where Lily and I had been that morning. I had learned that honesty worked better than avoidance. I told him we were in court and their mother and father received their sentences today. He asked how long, his voice small. I told him 2 years, but they would be able to visit when they were ready. He nodded, processing. He then asked if they would still live with us. I assured him they would, for as long as they needed to, and that Lily and I were not going anywhere. That evening, as Lily helped with schoolwork and I cooked supper, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, and I almost did not answer, but something made me. A professional, unfamiliar voice asked if I was Emily Hayes. I confirmed. The voice introduced herself as Victoria from the County Community Foundation and said they received my application for the returning student scholarship. She was glad to notify me that I had been chosen as one of this year's honorees. I nearly dropped the phone. I had applied on a whim, encouraged by my English professor who recognized my situation, and the scholarship would cover my remaining community college tuition and the transfer to a 4-year university. Victoria continued that the committee was particularly moved by my essay about breaking generational cycles while maintaining family bonds. The awards ceremony was the next week if I could attend. After hanging up, I stood in the kitchen, feeling overwhelmed. Lily noticed first, asking what was wrong. I told her nothing was wrong, that I received the scholarship. Lily shrieked and hugged me tightly. The kids looked up from their games, puzzled but caught up in our excitement. Owen asked if this meant I was going away, his lower lip trembling. I knelt to his level, explaining it meant I could finish school here and then transfer to a larger institution nearby. I would still be home every night. The scholarship ceremony was small, held in the community college library with 20 returning students, each with their own story of perseverance. I wore my best dress, bought secondhand for court appearances. Lily and the kids sat in the front row, and Owen waved enthusiastically every time I looked their way. When my name was called, I walked to the podium on shaky legs. The coordinator handed me the certificate and an envelope with the first installment. It was not a fortune, but it was enough to stop worrying about choosing between textbooks and groceries, to hire a reliable babysitter for evening classes, and to believe that deferred dreams were not always denied. 2 weeks later, Grandma Eleanor died. Aunt Margaret called, her voice neutral, informing me of the funeral on Saturday and that some family members did not think I should come. I understood. The family divide that began with my case had never healed. Half still believed I had ruined a sacred tradition, while the other half began to question what they had been taught about family commitments. Lily and I discussed it that night after the kids were asleep. Lily wanted to go, not for Grandma Eleanor, but for closure, to realize it was truly over. We arranged for the children to spend the day with a respite care family. The funeral was held at the same church where I had been baptized, where I spent countless Sundays managing younger siblings while my parents slept in the pew. When we entered the reception hall, conversation stopped. Some relatives turned their backs, while others nodded in recognition. Cousin Sarah approached first with her eldest daughter beside her. She gently remarked that she had been thinking about what I did. Her daughter, Camila, was 15, and Sarah had been supporting her siblings in the same way. She trailed off, looking at her daughter, stating they were going to do things differently. Other cousins approached, some to criticize, others to confess their own troubles. The generational split was clear. The elder relatives spoke of duty and sacrifice, while the younger ones mumbled about abandoned dreams and lost childhoods. Uncle David cornered me near the coffee station. He stated in a low, spiteful voice that I had destroyed the family and my parents were in prison because of me. I quietly responded that they were in prison because they committed fraud, and I just told the truth. He rushed out, but I noticed the doubt in his eyes, Even he was beginning to question the story he helped create. As we left, I saw Kevin waiting by his car, looking uneasy. He slowly approached, apologizing for lying about the tapes in court, saying he was under pressure from his mother who said family comes first. He shrugged helplessly. He now had a daughter, which made him consider what kind of family traditions he wanted to pass on. I nodded, acknowledging his comments rather than forgiving him. Some bridges could be repaired, but others were better left as debris. The judge praised the stable home Lily and I had created, noting the children's improved school performance and emotional well-being. As Miss Davis predicted, our parents did not contest the permanent guardianship hearing, perhaps finally realizing their actions had consequences. The spring semester brought new challenges. I registered for 18 credits, determined to graduate on time. Lily balanced her senior year of high school with a part-time job at a local bakery. We managed childcare duties with military precision, color-coding our shared calendar. The hardest part was helping the kids process their trauma. David had nightmares about being taken away again. The twins wet the bed when disturbed, and Owen clung to us constantly, afraid we would disappear like his parents. Their therapist, Dr. Grant, became our lifeline, teaching us about trauma responses and attachment healing. We gradually, painstakingly learned to be the solid, dependable presence the kids needed. Dr. Grant told us that healing is not linear, particularly during a difficult week when David refused to attend school and the twins were found hoarding snacks. She explained they were testing whether we would abandon them when things got hard. We did not abandon them. We showed up day after day,